Well, AOC, and let me know if you believe this, is saying that MAGA Republicans are coming up to her and say, man, I was wrong about Trump. I'm with socialism now. Do you buy that?
Absolutely not. In fact, I'd like to see some of the people who actually said that to AOC and check their ballots and see if they actually voted for President Trump, because I can assure you MAGA Republicans oppose everything that AOC and the modern day communist Democrat Party stands for. Mass migration and open borders like we saw under the Biden administration.
AOC now claims that a wave of MAGA voters are regretting their support for Trump, turning away from him and getting ready to back the Democrats, fully behind the DNC for 2028.
Men and women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years.
Karoline Leavitt flat out rejects it. She says AOC is completely wrong and just delivered one of the fiercest clapbacks you'll see all year.
I fully welcome Trump voters into our coalition. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but just hear me out. I cannot tell you, it just happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I can't tell you how many times someone has pulled me aside and said either I was once a big Trump voter and a Trump supporter, but then I started to kind of expand my world and where I got information, and now I've learned and now I've changed and I'm with you.
That was AOC's message when she hit social media. In her version, many Trump voters stick with him for one simple reason. They sit in front of Fox News all day, soak up the talking points, and never think for themselves. In her world, it has nothing to do with financial pressure under Biden, soaring grocery bills, painful gas prices, or rent that's become impossible. No, not that. She also brushes off the idea that Trump's support grew because of the wave of woke policies coming from the Biden administration, policies many Americans see as out of touch with real life. For AOC, it's all about media-induced brainwashing, plain and simple. But that smug explanation didn't go unanswered. Karoline heard AOC's remarks and refused to let them slide. What followed was a sharp, no-holds-barred rebuttal that flipped AOC's storyline on its head and exposed the arrogance behind it.
The president just dealt with Chuck Schumer, and President Trump and Republicans shellacked Chuck Schumer and the entire Democrat Party. After 43 days of Chuck standing out there trying to bravely hold the country hostage and inflict massive pain on the American public, Chuck got absolutely nothing, and now the knives are out for him. As you can see, Jesse, as you just perfectly laid out in your monologue, the Democrat Party is in complete disarray, and the truth is, they have been for 10 years since President Trump came on the political scene.
And that's hard to argue with. The DNC has looked shaky ever since Trump announced he was running again. From that moment, it's been one frantic move after another, with strategy giving way to confusion. It helps explain the endless accusations aimed at him, followed by flashy investigations and courtroom battles that promised explosive revelations but ultimately delivered very little. It explains the Russia collusion saga that dominated headlines for years, a story many Republicans say never lived up to the Democrats' claims. It also explains the constant stream of insults and dismissive labels, as if mockery could ever replace a strong argument. And yet, through all the scandals, the trials, and the media storms, nothing ever sticks. Time and again, the attacks failed to shake Trump's base or slow his momentum. If anything, they seem to strengthen his support and show just how rattled his critics have become.
They don't stand for anything good. They just stand for Donald Trump is bad. That's the only thing that unifies their party. And now you see how far they are moving to the left. They ran Senator Gillibrand and Senator Manchin out of town. Now they're running Chucky Schumer out of town. It's too bad he turned into a Palestinian. He did it for nothing, like President Trump says, because his own party is turning against him. And the Democrat Party is truly becoming a full-blown communist party.
Karoline goes straight for Democratic Party leaders, accusing them of losing control over their own base. She says the party has shifted so far left that even longtime figures like Chuck Schumer now seem out of step with the activists they once led. In her view, the most extreme factions have taken over. Instead of leadership setting priorities, it's the loudest, most radical voices online and in the streets calling the shots. Karoline argues that Democratic officials are now being sidelined in real time for being not woke enough. One poorly chosen word, one hint of moderation, and they're immediately labeled sellouts or traitors. To her, this infighting shows a party devouring itself, focused on purity tests rather than governing. And as Democrats turn on each other, Karoline says voters are noticing, with many quietly stepping back from a party that no longer seems to know what it stands for.
Men in women's sports is something MAGA Republicans and frankly the whole country rejects. It's a 90-10 issue, taxing people to death and taking their money and giving the majority of your income back to the government. That's a horrible idea that has not worked for thousands of years. MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump.
Karoline strikes with surgical precision, tearing apart AOC's claim that MAGA voters secretly regret supporting Trump. She doesn't just shrug it off. She demands proof, names, numbers, and hard evidence. By her account, none of it exists. Instead of relying on vague anecdotes or social media fantasies, Karoline lays out why millions of Americans backed Trump in the first place. It wasn't random. It was a reaction, a backlash against aggressive woke agendas from the DNC that left everyday voters frustrated and confused. Many Americans opposed men competing in women's sports, questioned medical transitions for minors, and grew uneasy with the party's shift toward open socialism. Karoline makes it clear, ignoring these concerns won't make them disappear. It only pushes more voters away. And if Democrats keep going down this path, she warns, the consequences could be severe.
MAGA Republicans know it, and that's why they overwhelmingly voted to re-elect President Trump. And a Democrat that you had in your monologue actually was right about one thing. I don't know his name, but I give him credit for his statement where he said that the Republican Party under President Trump is the party of the working man and woman. And because of President Trump's pro-growth, America First policies, he has spoken directly to the hearts of the forgotten men and women across this country. And that's who the Republican Party is today, thanks to him.
Yes, Karoline hits the mark. And this is the reality Democrats still refuse to face. Trump didn't win by chasing Twitter approval or elite praise. He spoke directly to middle America, to swing voters, and to people who felt ignored, patronized, and squeezed from every side. He tapped into working-class frustration, people worried about jobs, prices, safety, and stability, using language they actually understood. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris and the DNC focused almost entirely on coastal elites, corporate donors, and the loudest woke corners of the internet. Instead of addressing kitchen table concerns, voters were served lectures, labels, and moral grandstanding. That gap mattered. When ordinary Americans felt dismissed or mocked, Trump made them feel seen and heard, even if they didn't agree with him on everything. At the end of the day, elections aren't won with virtue signaling or polished talking points. They're won by connecting with real people living real lives. And that connection is where Trump succeeded and where the DNC fell short.
Well, we'll have to see. And I'm very curious. I'll have to find out from our great Attorney General Pam Bondi if the Trump DOJ is continuing this investigation that the Biden DOJ launched. Jesse, it's a good question, and we will get on that. But as for Gavin Newsom, I was not surprised to see him in Brazil, traveling the world, probably on the taxpayer dime, talking about climate change when his state, California, has some of the highest energy costs in the entire country.
Karoline also takes aim at Gavin Newsom, calling out what she sees as pure political hypocrisy. She criticizes Newsom for endlessly preaching about saving the planet while overseeing one of the nation's most expensive energy markets. Karoline argues it's easy to give climate lectures from a podium while ordinary families are forced to pay crushing electricity and gas bills just to keep their homes running. She says Newsom's green agenda might look good on paper, but in real life it falls apart, especially for working-class Californians who can't afford solar panels, electric vehicles, or other high-end alternatives. Instead of making life greener, she contends, these policies are making it costlier and harder to live. Karoline frames it as a textbook elite disconnect, politicians pushing feel-good environmental rhetoric while regular people bear the financial burden. In her view, Californians aren't rejecting environmental responsibility, They're rejecting leaders who put ideology ahead of affordability and common sense.
They have some of the highest gasoline prices in the entire country, despite President Trump's efforts. And they are working to bring down oil and gas prices in this country, to drill, baby, drill, to unleash American energy dominance. Gavin has done so much damage to his state with the Green New scam and with this utopian pursuit of climate change that is just so false. It's built on a fallacy that he has run up energy costs in his state that people are fleeing his state.
Karoline is right, and the signs are impossible to miss. Families and businesses are leaving California in growing numbers, fed up with crushing taxes, endless red tape, and stifling bureaucracy. For small business owners, every day is an uphill battle. Permits, compliance fees, and towering tax bills pile up until it just doesn't make sense to stay. Meanwhile, in Karoline's view, Newsom seems unconcerned. Instead of easing the strain or rethinking policy, he doubles down, tightening the squeeze on businesses for ambitious goals and political optics. The result is predictable. Companies move to states with lower taxes, fewer obstacles, and friendly business climates. Karoline calls it a leadership failure, plain and simple. Jobs leave, communities suffer, and tax bases shrink. Yet California's leaders act perpetually surprised by consequences anyone with eyes could see coming. At some point, she insists, denial stops being leadership and starts looking a lot like indifference.
So maybe he should leave Brazil and stop talking about this issue that is hurting his own people and get back to governing what was once a beautiful state of California that people are fleeing en masse because of his horrific energy and economic policies that have made the cost of living in California completely out of control.
Yeah, the climate scam's kind of like DEI. It's dead, and it's never coming back.
Yes, Karoline has basically said what millions of Californians are already thinking. Gavin Newsom needs to stop chasing headlines and start focusing on what actually matters to the people in his state. That means tackling the crushing cost of living that forces families into impossible choices every month. It means cutting back the bloated bureaucracy that slows everything down, drives up expenses, and strangles small businesses before they can thrive. It also means boosting reliable energy production instead of pushing policies that make power more expensive and less dependable. And above all, it means easing the tax burden that keeps pushing residents and employers out of California. Karoline's message is simple. Leadership isn't about grand speeches or national posturing. It's about making life more affordable and sustainable for everyday people. Until Newsom realigns his priorities around those basics, the exodus will continue, and Californians will keep paying the price for political stubbornness. Step back, and the pattern is clear. Democrats like AOC and Gavin Newsom keep serving up excuses, slogans, and narratives while voters demand real results. Karoline cuts through the noise. People didn't flock to Trump because of Fox News or misinformation. They did it because their lives were getting harder, pricier, and more unstable. The DNC's obsession with woke purity tests, soaring taxes, and ideological crusades has left working Americans behind. Instead of listening, party leaders double down and act shocked when voters walk away. Until Democrats confront the real reasons people are fed up, no spin will stop the political backlash already underway. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this.